Good afternoon, everybody who is online now. My name is Brian Cancian here. I'm the project manager, nope, business development manager here with Foundation. We're going to get started here in just a few minutes. It's just before 1. We'll give a few minutes for some others to hop on. So please stick around and we will get started in about 2 or 3 minutes. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brian Cancian. I'm Business Development Manager here with Foundation Software. I'd like to welcome you to our partner webinar this afternoon featuring Foundation Software and ProNovos. Today we have Dylan Kilpatrick with Foundation Software. He's been here with Foundation since roughly 2019. He started out in our client support and implementation department, where he assisted new clients through their transition to the Foundation accounting system and has provided ongoing support for those clients as well. He has a passion for finding optimal solutions for clients, and that led him to his current role of client sales representative, where he works with our existing client base to advise them on the products and services that would be most beneficial to their businesses. On the ProNovos side, we have both Bruce Orr and Kevin Bright with us today. Bruce is the CEO and Chief Data Scientist for ProNovos, and he is on a mission to bring transformative approaches to construction analytics, project management, and financial workflows to contractors across the U.S. Bruce frequently speaks and writes on analytics and other topics, including at major industry events like ConExpo. And he also belongs to the Data Warehouse Institute, Associated Builders and Contractors, SICPAC, as well as Associated General Contractors of America. He's a longtime member of CFMA as well. Kevin on the ProNovos side is the product manager over there. He has spent 7 years as a project manager with Outside the Lines, a design build contracting firm known for its custom rock work, themed construction, and specialty water features. His involvement in the rollout of their construction data analytics and project management solutions led him over to ProNovos, where he now serves as a liaison between ProNovos technical team as well as its contractor customers. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Dylan to get this started. Please stick around at the end for Q&A. And just as a housekeeping note, a recording link will be sent out to anyone who has registered. It'll go right out to the email address that you registered with. So you can look for that within a short time after the end of the webinar. So Dylan, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Brian. All right, everyone, just gonna go ahead and minimize this screen here. And we're just gonna start off today, how this webinar is gonna roll. Is we're gonna talk a little bit about Foundation, what Foundation has to offer. We're gonna talk about some of these products that fall under our banner, with today being a partner webinar with ProNovos. We also wanna just kind of highlight some of our existing products and companies that fall under our banner. And then we will talk about Foundation entry, get into Foundation and how it works. And then we'll link it over to the guys over at ProNovos, where they can tell you how that's going to pull information. Their program's going to pull information out of Foundation and then be able to show you everything that their system has to offer as well. So under the Foundation, banner of products, we have obviously the construction accounting software, your job cost accounting software with your in-house payroll and certified payroll and things of that nature. We have our payroll processing service, payroll for construction, and then some of these newer items down here towards the bottom that do integrate with Foundation. We'll talk about a couple of them within the presentation. We'll talk about the estimating platforms from McCormick and Estimating Edge and how those can pull job budgets into Foundation. And then we'll talk about the HQ Suite a little bit and how that can pull things like change orders into Foundation. So you can see all of our products here all the way down to our new product called WorkMax and About Time. And we're super excited, to not only, have all of these products that we offer. We're super excited that, other companies like ProNovos are, wanting to work with us and our clients to kind of bring their expertise to things like revenue forecasting to our clients. Going to go ahead and minimize this, and we're going to get into Foundation here. So under Foundation, we're just going to talk about some of the entry points. What are the strong points in Foundation, and what are people using our software for? So we usually like to start off in this kind of executive dashboard. As Foundation is a job cost accounting software, this is where the meat of the system is going to come into play. When you enter your things like your jobs and your job budgets, not just giving you basic financial data, we're going to give you that job cost code, cost class detail in the system and be able to report based off of this. This is just one of our many job cost reports that are in the system in our executive dashboard here. So when I minimize that down, where all of this data comes from and it flows is from the actual base accounting system. When we enter payroll, accounts payable, invoices, billings, that information then flows in through our general ledger and then down into our job cost reporting area. So we're just going to start today by talking about job entry. We have a couple of different ways that you can get job and job budgets into the system. And that can be through manual entry. I can come in here and I can manually enter things like jobs, customers, project managers. I can also import budgets from third-party estimating platforms, or I can use our validate third-party jobs and bring over a job and a job budget from, say, one of our estimating platforms like McCormick or Edge. So if I click on validate third-party jobs, I can pull in that job into the system, and it is going to give it a number, it is going to give it a name, and it's actually going to pull in the budget associated with it as well. So this comes straight from the estimating platform and pushes straight into our budgeting area. That is a seamless integration. And then from there is where we're going to get into being able to do our job cost reporting. And then we can also, this is going to be pulling in the contracts, so we can, bill off of this as well, and then do change orders on this so we can get a revised estimated cost and contract. And then on the other end, this is all data that is going to help the guys over at ProNovos give you guys that better revenue forecasting. So once we get the job and the job budget saved into the system, we can start looking at reports when we do entry, like our budget versus actual. So this is going to be that report that's going to tell you how are we doing, what did we budget for versus what are we, how's it looking now? So you can actually get a screenshot or a snapshot onto the job as it's going on instead of just looking at it at the end and saying, hey, we were way over budget at the end, we didn't make too much money. If we're 50% way through the job and we realize that there's issues, maybe we can adjust some things and kind of go from there. So this is going to give you that transparency and cost reporting as you're going through the job, as the entry is going into the system, as we're entering our labor, our materials, our subcontract agreements, our calculating burden and doing those calculations. It's going to come straight in through the system there. And this is all that upfront entry that we would do. That's that budgeted line item where I said, hey, we can either manually enter it or we can bring it in from an estimating platform or something of that nature. As we're going through the job and we need to do change orders, there's a couple of different ways that we can track change orders in the system. I can enter them directly into the software and create a change order here. I can track it as approved or pending, and then I can actually change to contract or do a change to estimated cost. So we can do a change to that billing contract amount or a change to the estimated cost, and then I can actually allocate that in the distribution area, and I can mark that into the cost codes as well here. The other way to get that kind of entry into the system and do a change order so you have a change to your revised estimated budget is actually through Project HQ. So this is something on our HQ suite. So you can see that same job that I was having in Foundation. These two systems talk to each other, they integrate. When I come in here, I can actually go into the entry and go down to cost management, and I can go to change management, and I can actually manage my change orders from here. So this is just a different entry point that's not within Foundation to adjust those reporting numbers you're going to get on the other side. So I can create a change order right through here, put in all of my information that's here for my change order, who I'm sending it to, and I can actually come in here and add a scope of work. So this is where I'm actually going to get that change to unit cost, put in my markups, my unit price, and attach it to those cost codes that are linked into the system. So just further, reporting capabilities through multiple different entries in the system. So the more we track in here, the better off we're going to be. And that's why we have a couple different ways that you can do that entry. If you just want your staff in the office to be able to enter the change order, they can 100% just enter the change order after it's approved or as it's going. If you want the ability to have your project managers enter that without ever having to be in the accounting software, that's where this Project HQ kind of comes into it. And that's just one of those additional entry points that we have outside of the system through Project HQ. Another one that we're going to talk about in a little bit is actually the ability to do AIA worksheets. So get in that billing data, get in that revenue into the system through there. So as we're doing those entries, change orders is going to change those revised estimated budget. When I do entry in things like accounts payable or payroll, that's going to affect what I can enter against there. So when I enter a budget or revised, revisement to the budget, when I go into accounts payable and enter an invoice, it is going to actually limit what cost codes and classes that I can put in there as well, further giving you better reporting. So we're trying to limit entry in certain fields based off what the budget is, so that at the end of the day, it's going to make your reporting better. We're trying to make life easier for all parties, whether that be the entry data, your data entry person, or that be high level, CEO or project managers that might want to look at those reporting as well. One big thing for any non-Foundation users out there, besides that big job costing piece that Foundation really specializes in, is that contractor specific payroll and the ability to do that different setup in the system. So when we enter employees into the system, whether that be through manual entry here or in a couple of months when we put out our own HR management platform called Workforce HQ and that information's imported, we're able to set up trades and unions and things of that nature and pay rates that all get entered into the system. So when we're running payroll, we can actually run certified payroll reports after the fact that are automatically pulled directly into the system. So just running normal payroll with all the setup that happens in the background, we can automatically pull any sort of certified payroll reports very quickly, very easily, in whatever format we need. So I see the US Department of Labor here, but if I scroll through, you can see all the different states that we have. We have all of those in there. US Department of Labor is pretty much the main one I see people using nowadays. And we also have the certified payroll reports that you guys can do electronically in here as well. So if you guys are union prevailing wage, we handle all of that setup in here. And if you guys need certified payroll reports or even union deduction and fringe reports, all of that information is automatically reported based off of the setup in the background. So the system handles all of that information very, very well. Moving through to actual billing, so we kind of hitting on a lot of different things that will affect cost and cost reporting. Now what we're going to do is kind of jump into some different billing formats that we can do in Foundation. We have your basic in accounts receivable AR invoices where I can come in, I can choose my customer, I can choose my job, and then I can actually choose what type of billing I want to do. I can do a lump sum billing where I'm just saying, hey, we're billing for 20,000 and go that direction and do that directly into the software there. Or I can actually choose to do a progress billing where I can put in percentage completes. So based off of that original contract that we imported or entered when we entered the job, we can actually come in here and put 10% bill and it'll do that for me. Now this project's probably already overbilled a little bit and it'll show you that error message, but that's how that would work in the system. So we have one form of progress billing through just 10% across the contract. And we'll talk a little bit more about AIA billings here in a second, where you have that kind of line item AIA billing in the system as well. And then the last one on here is a quantity billing where I can actually come into the system and do line items and quantities and throw those billing information into the system. Now, when I post that, that's going to go flow back through your general ledger. So you're getting all your financials, and then it's going to flow into your job cost area where you're actually able to see what is my billed versus what is actually, there. So I can pull in a job cost activity report and I can do a job summary and pull that information to the system, and I can see my current build, my current cost, and my current profit. I can pull reports where I see budgeted versus actual, and a lot of things on the cost end of things. Now, when we get into, like I said, looking more at the revenue numbers, that's where ProNovos is going to come in and kind of show you guys what they have to offer when it comes to revenue forecasting based off of all of this different billing information that we're pushing in and change orders that come into the system as well. Last thing here that I wanted to show you is the AIA billing and the two different types of AIA billings that we can do in the system. So one way is just to do the AIA straight through Foundation, where we're manually entering them here. And you can actually see an AIA is locked down because of an existing import from Project HQ. Let's actually circle onto this one. I can come in here and I can put in all of my AIAs. So what is an AIA? It's the American Institute of Architects. It's just a billing format that is required on certain jobs, and it is going to force you to have these line items and then a scheduled value, and then you bill based off of those scheduled value. You put percentage completes. And we have that format built in here, so we can actually put in all of our percentage completes and we can bill out and we can actually pull the AIA from Foundation. Or the new way to do AIAs is actually to track them through Project HQ. This will allow your project managers to be the ones who determine the schedule of values and do the AIA billings on the applications through here. So they would actually handle all of that information through Project HQ without ever having to get into the accounting system, but they're able to sync that into Foundation through this sync item here. And then they're also able to print out those AIA documents straight through Project HQ as well. So this is kind of further promoting what a lot of our clients have asked us for a while, which is, hey, how can we do this entry a little bit more streamlined? How do we get our project managers to be able to push information and feed us information to this application that's going to give us all this nice reporting without actually having to get into the software? We want them to be able to view it anywhere, anytime, As long as they have internet access, they can get into Project HQ, and then they can generate their AIAs or their change orders, their submittals, their RFIs, all of that information, and then push it into Foundation at the click of a button. So those are kind of, again, some high points that I wanted to touch on, the capabilities of Foundation. Again, it's a job cost, it's a construction specific accounting software that is going to give you the ability to run certified payroll formats, union reports, a lot of job cost reports, and a lot of other things. We like to call ourselves an all-in-one back office solution. We have a lot of available products that'll help you out. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of transition over here to Kevin and Bruce, who will show you on their side why they are a partner of ours and what they can do to pull information from here and give you guys some nice data on the other end and some reports, okay?
All right.
So just a second for us. We're going to go ahead and get that swapped over. Just bear with us for one moment.
All right, Dylan, thank you for that. And I appreciate everyone joining this webinar. I'm excited to share with you what we've been working on here at ProNovos. If you don't know about ProNovos and what we do, I would say that we exist truly for one thing, and that is to protect profits for contractors. And we've had and still have a great relationship with Foundation, one of the smoothest integrations that you will ever have with a third-party product. But what I like to talk about is kind of like the why we are doing what we're doing. As Dylan was telling us about all the great things that Foundation is doing in terms of helping you manage your projects, manage the transactions within Foundation. I think that consider ProNovos to be that tool that you use that helps you find that North Star. And so if I was going to use a simple analogy, I think that let's consider success. And if we say success is like a combination lock, only a few numbers need to be turned in order to open the lock. From our perspective, those numbers are key performance indicators. The best contractors have dashboards that lead them to that North Star. And we do this by showing you your data. Your data is going to tell a story. We do that through analytics, and we also do it through the financial workflows. As you can see here on your screen, we have WIP reporting, cash flow forecasting, AR collections, AP, and what we'll talk about mostly is the revenue projections. Now, before we get into revenue projections, Dylan was showing us a lot about data entry. Sometimes when you're busy using Foundation and you are not able to understand what all has been entered, you need something that is going to tell you about your data. And one of the analytics that we provide is a project data health dashboard. We look at all your jobs and we look at the major attributes that you're utilizing or fields that you're utilizing in Foundation. For instance, what Kevin is showing you now is all of the active jobs. You can choose the fields like, hey, what jobs do not have budgets? So if Kevin came down on his screen and he clicked on the budgets, down on the left here, you'll see what jobs have budgets. So here we are. Yeah, so as we were saying, we won't spend too much time on it. As you enter data, sometimes you need to know what jobs don't have budgets, what jobs do, contracts, and all of that. So this is what we call the project data health. And so as you see, Kevin clicked on contracts. The little legend in the top left is just telling you which jobs do not have it. This is a good way for you to go back into Foundation and update missing information. So without further ado, let's go to revenue projections if we can. Kevin, let me ask you a question about this particular module. You and the team did some research around revenue projections, and you tried to understand what contractors were using this, when they were doing this, and the benefit that they were getting from the revenue projection. So tell me a little bit about what you found during the research.
Yeah, what we found is a lot of contractors were attempting to do revenue projections, and I think revenue projections are particularly important in the construction industry. You know, it's not as easy to say like, hey, next month we're going to make 1,000 widgets and we're going to sell each one for $1,000. There's a lot of variables in construction about which projects you're going to win, when are those projects going to go, just the overall cyclical nature of construction that makes it very difficult to have accurate revenue projections. So what we saw a lot of contractors doing was they were taking the data, their active contracts, the budgets from their accounting systems like Foundation, downloading it to Excel, and they would create these massive Excel documents with 57 moving parts, kind of trying to project out, okay, here are the projects we think are going to go, here are the ones we think we're going to win. And it was just a very cumbersome process trying to manage it in Excel to get that accurate forecast of where do you think your revenue is going to be. And that's a real problem, right? Because if you don't know what your revenue is going to be in a given year, there's no way you can plan, right? How are you going to make sure you've got the proper manpower for it? How are you going to make sure you've got the proper equipment? How are you going to make sure that your bottom line is going to look good at the end of the year? So this real difficulty in getting clarity into your revenue forecast was something we saw a lot of contractors struggling with.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Excel, a lot of times contractors are working in Excel, and I said that we exist to protect profit. However, I would also say we exist to save you time and get you out of Excel. So now this has a lot more functionality than you would get in Excel. And so if I take a step back and Kevin, if we were to describe the things that we think we want to communicate to all of the listeners, what are some of the most important things that you think we should talk about?
Yeah, I think it's really when you consider your revenue forecast, there's kind of the two main components that you need to take into account. One is what's going to be your current backlog. What are those jobs you currently have in our contract? That's the revenue you know you're going to earn. The real question about that is, when is that revenue going to happen? So that's the first component to consider, is that backlog. And then the second component is, what are those prospective jobs? What are the jobs we're bidding? What are the jobs we're chasing? What are the ones we think we're going to win? And then looking at that not only in terms of when is that work going to happen, but then what is our revenue forecast going to look like based on if we win a certain subset of jobs or if we don't win a certain subset of jobs. So taking those two things into account, and we can see that here, we have our backlog and our prospective amount that we're projecting for 2023. And then what does that mean for our total projected revenue when we combine those together? And then something we always encourage contractors to do is to work towards a target, right? Everyone likes a goal. It's good to have a goal, to understand what revenue you need to do to make sure, or to define a successful year. So being able to set that target and then tracking how that total projected revenue is comparing against it is a really worthwhile thing to do. And you can kind of see the chart on the right here that kind of depicts, as the months go by, how is that kind of stacking up against your target. And again, you see the breakdown between those two key components, your backlog projects and your prospective jobs here.
I love that. Speaking of backlog, let's be clear about the definition of backlog, because it can get a bit confusing due to the way some contractors define backlog. When you define backlog in ProNovos, tell us what that means. What is this 12.1 million here?
Yeah, so this 12 million, and let's scroll down here and we can actually look at the backlog section. So basically what this is telling me is, it's saying, of all of my active contracts, I think I'm going to do another 12 million in 2023. And this really gets into where the benefits of the partnership between Foundation and ProNovos really comes into play. Is if you're using ProNovos, you're not having to enter this information manually. It's going to pull all of your active contracts from Foundation, and then it's going to look at what your job costs are, what's your budget, what's your projected final cost, to come up with what was the prior revenue that you've earned on this project before 2023. And then based on that, it will kind of tell you what your remaining backlog is. So I guess very straightforwardly, to answer your initial question, Bruce, backlog is contract minus revenue already earned on the project. And that's your remaining backlog for a job.
Got it. Got it. And so if there are jobs set up in Foundation, the Foundation users, they've went through the process of adding these jobs, entering the contract amount, that data automatically flows into what you see here.
Exactly, yeah. So when we look at this here, 21018 Woolworth Building, this project's coming directly from Foundation. This isn't something the user had to enter. It's flowing automatically in. Same thing with the contract amount, and same thing with the prior revenue amount. All that information is basically flowing directly from the data that's coming out of Foundation.
Got it. What you talked about prospective jobs, typically that data doesn't live in Foundation. So what have you found around the way contractors are sort of entering prospective jobs? Where's that information coming from, and how can they do it in ProNovos?
Yeah, and this is where you get into kind of there's always just as much art into doing something like a revenue forecast as there is a science. And this is where a lot of the experience among the within the contractor really comes into play, understanding which jobs you're chasing, what's the relationship with that prospective client, what's the likelihood you could win it. And what you can do is, as you're tracking those jobs here, you can come in and add them to ProNovos. I'll just call this example. We'll call it client A. We'll give it a start date. We'll say it's going to start in August, and it will run through the end of the year. And whoops. We'll say it's got an estimated contract amount of 1 million, and I think I'm going to earn a 5% margin. And then what I can do here is, rather than saying, okay, that $1 million, how much do I think I'm going to earn in August, September, October, November, December? I can just say, hey, you know what, just put a linear distribution curve on it or an S-curve distribution on it. And then I can select whether I want to include it in my overall projections or not. So let's say it's a job that I'm just tracking, but I think it's, it's a real crapshoot whether we'll win it or not. Maybe it's a 10% chance, but I want to track it just to make sure we don't lose sight of it. I can select not to include it. But if it's a job that I'm very confident we're going to win, I can say, all right, include that in my forecast. I'm going to save this here. And now we'll see the example job here. And then because I selected that linear distribution, my duration was 5 months. 1 million divided by 5 months means each month I'm forecasting $200,000 in revenue. So my 2023 total is 1 million, and I have $0 remaining in backlog at the end of the year. So it allows you to take that backlog that you have coming from Foundation and supplement that data with other jobs that you're pursuing that you think you might win, so you can get as accurate of a forecast as possible.
To me, and I'm going to ask a rhetorical question, but to me, this is a big time saver for contractors doing this. Do you agree, or does it not take that much time to do something like this in Excel?
Yeah, and I think this is where you really see kind of the challenges of Excel. Like if you just wanted to say, hey, I want to track the handful of jobs we're chasing, you could probably create an Excel sheet pretty quickly for it. But where that challenge becomes is then integrating that data with your Foundation data and basically saying, okay, now that I know these are the jobs I'm chasing, I can also pull that into the jobs that I already have within Foundation. And then the other thing that makes it very simple here is you're not having to manage formulas in Excel. We have all the formulas built in. You can kind of quickly distribute the cost, the revenue. And this cuts down a lot of the, what I like to call data manipulation in Excel. We see that a lot among contractors, that anytime they're trying to do any forecasting or analysis in Excel, they spend more time just setting up the formulas, making sure the data is in the right place, that they're not actually analyzing the information. And that's what we try to do at ProNovos with tools like this, is we're trying to take away that front end work, so you can really focus on the analysis part of looking at your projects and the prospective job and say, okay, which of these do we really think we're going to win? And what is my revenue going to look like if I say, hey, we're going to win these 3, but not these 3, or we're going to win these 5 and not these 2. And you can kind of do that different what if scenarios.
Got it. You know, what's interesting is revenue and cost they have, it's an interesting relationship. If I am budgeting my revenue, then I would assume that on the other side of the coin, there's a cost aspect to it that I have to consider. Is that true?
Yeah, and this is so my background before working at ProNovos was I was a project manager in construction, and this was one of the hardest concepts for me to really wrap my mind around when I was a PM, is that revenue is kind of tied to your costs on the project, right? You know, in construction, we do percentage completion for revenue recognition, so it's not related to you know, when you receive payments on a project. So understanding, if you want to have an accurate revenue forecast for a project, it's really important to make sure you have a good understanding of what % complete you're going to be on a month-by-month basis. And one way we help with that at ProNovos is all of these jobs here that I'm looking at that are in my backlog, I can update what I think my forecasted revenue is going to be in a given month. I can kind of click into any of this here and say, all right, in July, I think I'm going to do $200,000 in revenue. So I can update it that way. But if I want to get a more holistic view, I also have the option to drill into the project. So if I load the project, I can see more of this project view here, where this is giving me what more of the specifics around the project. So I can see what my contract amount is, what's my earned revenue to date, my backlog, my job costs, my projected final costs, cost to complete, and then what I'm forecasting for my cost. And this is where, if a project manager is forecasting their costs, if they're doing a good job of that, then you should have accurate revenue projections that kind of come out of these cost projections.
I love this. This is, first glance, it feels a bit complicated, but I know once you start looking at this, a lot of this information is familiar to most foundation users. Your revised contract amount, your completion percentage. Now, you talked about S-curve and linear. I believe that when you went out and did the research, you found that most contractors were doing this in a linear fashion, right? It's easier to do it in a linear fashion, but we know construction projects are not linear. Can you show us an example of how the S-curve might be impacted? I think this might be an S-curve. It looks like an S-curve, but I see custom is selected. Talk a little bit about how we can visualize and see this different ways.
Yeah, so if I have a remaining $2,207,000 on the project, and I select a linear curve here, what we're going to see is that's going to distribute the cost evenly across the remaining months. Now, to your point, Bruce, I think a lot of contractors start with that linear curve, right? It's very intuitive. You know, a lot of the times it's going to be sufficient just to kind of account for the different variances within a project. But what we tend to see in construction, what is more common, is an S-curve. And what that S-curve represents is it's basically a slow ramp-up process. Then you hit a peak of productivity on the project, and then it starts to ramp back down. I think that's a pretty common trajectory for construction projects to take. So if I select this S-curve here, if I go down, what it's going to do is it's going to forecast my remaining costs in that S-curve pattern, that kind of slow ramp up, peak, and then right back down. So you can kind of see that process as the costs distribute here. And if I think that's the most accurate representation of how I think my job is going to progress, I can kind of say, all right, now that I've selected the S-curve, I'm previewing it, that looks good, I'm going to save the data, and now that gets committed. And another way to think about this is it's not always intuitive to project managers to think in terms of, hey, what are the actual costs I'm going to have on a month-to-month basis? Sometimes it's easier to view it from a percent complete basis. So you can look at that here, and as I apply that S-curve, it's going to tell me what my percent complete on a month-to-month basis is based on that. So you can see, all right, I'm currently 8% complete. In July, I'll be 12, August 22, September 41, and so on until I get to March where I'm 100% complete.
That's powerful. I like that. Very powerful.
Yeah. And the other thing that I think is really powerful here is you have the option to kind of click into any month to see the actual full financial picture of what happened in that month for the project. So if I select on this here, it's going to give me kind of the specific breakdown of how did my contract amount change from month to month? How did my projected final cost change? Was there any profit margin fade or gain? And then I can kind of see bit by bit, okay, how does that actually affect the overall financials between what my costs were in the month versus what I projected? How does that impact my percent complete? Again, projection versus actual. And then if I know if I'm percent complete, I know my revenue on the project for the month. And if I know my revenue and I know my cost, I can see what my profit is on the month. So you can kind of get that timeline view on a month by month basis, how your costs and your revenue are driving the profit on the project.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you about ways in which contractors would use a tool like this. Obviously, you need something like this to help you plan and ensure that you're going in the right direction. But there are other stakeholders that might be interested in some of this information as well. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think probably the one we see most often, if we go back to kind of our company view here, you're right. It's a really valuable tool from a financial planning standpoint. What we see a lot of contractors trying to go through this exercise for as well, though, is their bonding agency kind of wants to see this. They want to see what their forecasting revenue is for the next 6, 12, 18 months. So they can properly assess what their bonding capacity should be and kind of the risk associated with the contractor. So it's not only a great internal tool, but it's a great way to communicate to external stakeholders that you are not only going to meet your objectives, but also that you're properly planned and that you know what you're forecasted to do. I had a boss who used to always tell me it's not good if you end up making way more money than you thought you were going to, but you didn't actually know it, because that means you just got lucky. Really the most sophisticated contractors, they are accurately forecasting what they're going to achieve. And tools like this can help communicate to external stakeholders that, okay, not only are you going to do the work that you need to do to meet your bottom line, but that also you're on top of things and you're forecasting and you're planning accordingly.
Oh, well said. Well said. So just to talk about why we do what we do, I kind of told you we're here to protect profits. I'll quickly just talk about what I love about analytics. I still hold on to the title Chief Data Scientist because it's just my background. Some people study law, some study engineering. I study data. I study ways to get data to people to try to make better decisions. But the reason why I like analytics, and for those that are still with us, it doesn't matter if you're young or old, male or female, black or white, knowledge will always be power. And there's never been, in my opinion, a time in history where we've had so much access to knowledge. And if you consider all of the data that you've been storing in Foundation, you've been sitting on more data than most people know what to do with. And the problem is most people look at this data as just data. They don't consider the story that can be told. we help you tell that story. We help you understand the things that you need to do, the jobs you need to focus on, the types of jobs, and it gives you that competitive advantage. And telling the story, like I said, it's not easy, but when you possess the technical know-how to choose to apply certain analytical skills, it's a game changer. So the revenue projection, I've been waiting on this for a long time, because in my opinion, this is sort of icing on the cake to all of the other analytics and financial workflows that we currently provide. Kevin, you've done a phenomenal job going through this. I'm sure there are a lot of other things that you think we should know. We have a little more time, so I'm kind of curious if there's anything that you think you should tell us about revenue projections.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of kind of intricacies that we could probably get into, but I think the biggest thing is that as a contractor, it's really important to kind of be looking forward to be doing these forecasting exercises, and tools like ProNovos that help you do this quicker are really powerful. And what we see, kind of the journey that a lot of contractors go through, is the first time you try and do something like this, it's a little rough, right? If you never tried to forecast your revenue, chances are the first time you do it, it's going to be pretty difficult. It may not be the most accurate, but the more and more you do it, the more refined you're going to get at the process. And tools like ProNovos can kind of help you go through that process to get better at it, because what we see is when contractors are kind of looking more forward looking, taking the data that Bruce mentioned, to have kind of that forward thinking mindset, a lot of the other things start to kind of fall in place.
Right. Well, so the last thing I'll say, and I guess we don't have to keep everyone, but typically when you are looking at a demonstration of software, there's a chance that your data will not look that way. I can't tell you how many times I've been seeing software that I was blown away by the demo, only to get it and recognize, wait a minute, this looks nothing like what I saw the sales guy show me. So for those that are still on the call that use Foundation, if you want to reach out to ProNovos and sync your data to see what your data looks like, we'd love to have a conversation with you. It's no charge. Let us show you how we can help you utilizing the data. Kevin's showing the analytics marketplace. We have thought through many situations that contractors are going through when they're trying to get answers. Let's not be the company that is spending an insurmountable time putting data in Excel and not having the time to analyze it. You become the analyst. Don't worry about getting the data in Excel. So Kevin, this analytics marketplace, I know that you have put a lot of thought into. You worked with a lot of clients, but anything that you think we should know about this?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest takeaway with this is all these dashboards are predefined. So like Bruce was saying, once we sync your data from Foundation, which is an overnight process, you're not having to do any setup here. All these dashboards come pre-populated. And what that allows you to do is really spend more time on analyzing the data, because that, at the end of the day, is the most important thing. Spending less time kind of doing that data prep, the data manipulation, let us handle that. We really want to make sure that we're giving you the tools and the time to focus on the analysis. And a lot of these dashboards provide really good insights, not only holistically at the company level, but also at specifically the project level too. So kind of looking at both the micro and the macros are a really good resource.
Got it. I saw that there's a question out here. My apologies, Louis, for just now seeing this. Kevin, I'm going to pose this question to you.
Actually,
So,
Bruce,
sorry.
hey, it's Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Decided I'd chime in here. I've been looking at this comment, and I wanted to see if I can address this. I don't know if you'd have anything to add to it, but this is very, very common. I'll recite the comment for everybody here, but it says, keep in mind the difference between revenue and billings, where revenue is a measurement based off a percentage of completion. So how does the system manage this, considering the costs aren't always up to date and that data is only good as current as cost information, including indirect expenses that haven't been allocated to jobs as direct costs? Now, in my background with Foundation, I spent the better part of 17 years working directly with clients on how they utilize Foundation. And one of the most powerful and underutilized pieces of the software is the ability to capture indirect costs and set up either automatic or semi-automatic allocations so that those costs do get allocated out to projects in a timely manner so that these types of reports are up to date. But the other thing to consider is how the jobs are estimated. I've seen numerous times when the project estimates and the projected gross profit margins do not include any sort of indirect or G&A overhead. And that's totally fine if your estimate and the way that you're posting costs to the project are consistent. And I've also seen times when you've got estimates that include a provision for some form of overhead allocation, but no actual allocations being made. And that's where you run into some problems. So it's very important, and that's what our consulting team here with Foundation can do, is really work with you guys to make sure that either you're doing it consistently, either no estimating for overhead and no allocations, or estimating with overhead as well as getting those costs applied to projects in a timely manner.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well said. I couldn't have said that any better, literally. Well said.
So with that, we're reaching our time here, but Q&A is open. You have the option here through your GoToMeeting panel to type a question into the questions pane. If there are any, we'd love to see them, hopefully address them. Amanda asked, what is the cost? Amanda, are you talking anything on the Foundation side? You're talking ProNovos side? And we have contact info, ProNovos already have Foundation utilize projections on it. So yeah, I think best choice there is probably to talk to someone directly at ProNovos to analyze your specific needs and situation and get pricing on that.
Yeah, absolutely, Amanda. If you want to reach out, we can talk a little more about pricing. We have a simple pricing model based on users. So yeah, please reach out. I think after this, you will certainly get an email with our contact info.
Correct.
Yeah, great. And I love that you're doing projections in Foundation already. That's awesome. It's a great tool for that. All right.
Yep, I don't see anything else coming in.
Well,
so, Bruce, Kevin, Dylan, thank you guys for spending part of your afternoon with us today and presenting on this partner webinar. Very informative. All of you attendees left, thank you guys for taking time out of your day to hang out with us as well. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys again.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having us, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Happy 4th of July to you.
Oh, one more little thing here. It says, ProNovos, I'm interested. Please let me know how to proceed. Bruce, I'm assuming you can see this question in your pane as well, just contact info.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Very good. Thanks, Jeff. All right, guys. Take care. Enjoy your 4th of July holidays as well. And we'll talk soon.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.